In law enforcement, when you watch a chaotic incident unfold, your first reaction might be a gut feeling. That's just wrong. But in the administration of justice, a baseline gut reaction is an insufficient tool to analyze an incident. Professional policing requires the ability to evaluate, debate, and legally justify your decisions using objective, standardized frameworks. Understanding multiple ethical systems provides a way to move beyond subjective feelings and build structured arguments that can be analyzed and debated. Today, we are following a specific roadmap, moving from foundational philosophical systems to individual decision-making, and finally to macro-level, agency-wide justice outcomes. Using these ethical frameworks as tactical tools gives you a repeatable method for defending your actions during an internal affairs investigation or a civil deposition. To debate moral actions, we first need a shared vocabulary for determining what makes an action good. That vocabulary comes from three classical ethical systems. The first system is religious ethics, where morality is grounded in divine command. An action is good because a higher power dictates it. The second is natural law. This system posits that universal moral truths are discoverable through human reason, operating independently of any human-made laws. The third is virtue ethics, which evaluates an action by asking what a person of excellent character would do in that situation. This third system, virtue ethics, serves as the philosophical foundation for the leadership competencies you will study later in Module 6. These classical systems provide our definitions of good, but we need practical methods to apply them. Justice professionals typically use one of three operational methods to apply these ethical systems to real-world scenarios. Moral absolutism is the adherence to fixed rules regardless of the context or the consequences. Situational ethics allows the context of a call to shape the right action, but strictly within a shared, defined standard. Moral relativism is the denial that any shared or objective standard exists at all. While situational ethics says the specific threat dictates the tactic used to preserve life, relativism says that because different people value life differently, no universal standard for preserving it can be enforced. If an agency allows relativism, supervisors lose the ability to correct misconduct because every officer becomes their own final authority. Without a shared baseline, consistent policy enforcement becomes impossible. Culpability in law enforcement operates on two separate axes, the criminal and the moral. Criminal culpability means violating a written statute, while moral culpability means violating ethical standards. Quadrant 1 covers conduct that is both. The second quadrant represents conduct that is criminal but only minimally blameworthy, such as a technical policy violation committed to save a life. The third quadrant represents conduct that is neither criminal nor morally blameworthy. The fourth quadrant is the most challenging, conduct that is morally wrong but perfectly legal. Consider a supervisor who watches a subordinate mistreat a citizen. By never intervening, they break no law, yet fail an ethical obligation. This gap, where behavior is legal but unethical, is the hardest problem for supervisors to manage, and requires an understanding of how people develop their sense of right and wrong. Lawrence Kohlberg's 3 levels of moral development help explain why personnel adhere to or violate these standards. At the pre-conventional level, behavior is driven entirely by the fear of discipline. When an officer believes detection is unlikely, this motivation to follow the rules disappears. At the conventional level, people follow rules to maintain social order and meet the expectations of their peers and the public. At the post-conventional level, action is guided by internal principles that the individual follows regardless of whether they are being watched. An agency that relies solely on the threat of punishment builds a fragile form of compliance that only exists when a supervisor is present. Because law enforcement professionals operate with high autonomy, systems built only on detection structurally fail when that supervision is absent. Moving from individual psychology to the entire organization, we have to look at the dual nature of justice. Corrective justice is a proportionate and fair response to a specific individual wrong. This is distinct from distributive justice, which focuses on the fair allocation of outcomes across an entire population. Imagine a department that successfully disciplines an officer after a substantiated force complaint. In that single case, the agency has achieved corrective justice. But if a later analysis shows large stop rate disparities across different neighborhoods, the agency has failed at distributive justice. Leaders must monitor both, because an agency can succeed at individual corrective actions while failing to provide systemic justice to the community. To recap, classical systems provide the vocabulary, operational methods frame the context, and culpability matrices separate law from morality. Moral development levels explain how we maintain compliance, while dual justice models measure an agency's overall impact. Your next step is to locate the guided practice scenario in the chapter regarding the traffic stop and the unpaid fine warrant. Work through that specific scenario using these frameworks before you attempt the module quiz. Applying these frameworks allows you to move beyond reactive impulses and make decisions that stand up to legal and public scrutiny.